Okay, great. And yeah, and feel free to stop me at any point if you have
Yep.
questions. And they gave me a few things like questions that I could cover. But yeah. Yeah, so my name's Gabriel or Gabe. Um, so I went to Mountain View High School way back in the day. I graduated from there in 2016. Um, and I did some like computer science and programming stuff, and that also had some there was some like game programming that we did there as well. I then I ended up going to college at Brigham Young University, and I majored in computer science with an emphasis in animation. Um, so what that means is like all my core classes were computer science, like programming, data structures, algorithms, all that stuff. And then all of my electives were animation related. So there was some for 3D modeling, for texturing, for animating. There was classes on like making games. And then towards the end of my time in college, one thing that my school did was we had like a senior capstone where everyone who is in the animation program together, they come together and they do one short film, like a 3 to 5 minute film, and then like a short video game. And I was one of there's like a director and a producer, and I was the producer on the video game. So I was like helping schedule everything. I helped um, just kind of like fulfill the director's vision. But I also got to like do a bunch of stuff. Like I made a lot of the effects in the game. I did a lot of um, like the level design, the game design, just a little bit of everything. And then that game, it was a student game, and we submitted it to some competitions and stuff, and it actually did really well. Um, so that was really exciting. Um, and then I also worked on there was um, a short animated film that I helped work on as well, and um, I did a lot of like animation tools, I guess you could say. Like I wrote code that automated a lot of the stuff for the artists. I helped a lot with like the rendering and final compositing. Um, and we released that film, and it also did pretty well. It won a student Emmy, which was really exciting. And now I um, I graduated last year, and I now work at Leica Studios. Um, they do stop motion animated films. They did films like Coraline, Paranorman, Kubo and the Two Strings. Um, and one of the things there that I'm doing is um, I'm helping them to use Unreal Engine, which is like a game engine. I'm not sure how familiar you are. But I'm helping them use that as kind of like a real-time renderer for some of the things that they're doing. I don't know, like, did you ever watch The Mandalorian?
A little bit.
Did you ever see they did these like cool behind the scenes stuff where they had this like big LED wall, and then like they would film inside of that, and they had like the whole background of the set in
Wait, really?
CG. Yeah, it was really cool. And then it's like, so they did that in Unreal Engine, and then they had it
No.
like hooked up to the physical camera. So when they moved the camera, it like moved the background. So I'm helping them do kind of a similar, um, yeah, like a kind of a similar thing for their stop motion animated stuff.
Oh, that's really cool. Is there like a lot that goes behind like the set design?
Um, yeah, I mean, in any basically anything you do like for like feature animation, so if it's like a CG animated movie or a movie with VFX or a video game, there's like tons of artists that work on tons of stuff. You have like people who do concept art, and then you have people who will make 3D models. You have people who texture the 3D models. Sometimes you have people who do like the actual like character animation. You have people who do layout, which is like, I don't know, say we had a whole other team. I'm like the layout guy, and they make like a bunch of trees and a bunch of rocks and a bunch of um, I don't know, hillsides and all this stuff, and then I have to take it and I assemble it all in the level and um, or like in the 3D scene,
Yeah.
I guess, um, and so there's a lot of jobs to do, I should say. So if you're at like a really big studio, or even like a medium to large studio, like the studio I'm at now is kind of in between medium and large, you'll have like different people doing all of those roles. At smaller studios, you might have like just a few people that do a lot of those roles, or maybe even one person that does all of those.
So there's a lot of roles like that consist in the company, essentially.
Yeah, so there's a lot of ways that people can, a lot of, yeah, different ways that people can be involved. And that's kind of great because like it uses a lot of different skill sets. Like if you're, really like artistically talented, and you're good at like 2D drawing, that's really helpful. If you're good at like sculpting and 3D modeling, that's really helpful. Um, but then also like if you're more like tech inclined, like if you're better at programming or you're better at like scripting and those kinds of things, there's lots of opportunities there to like you can make tools so that artists can do things faster. In video games, there's a lot of um, like you have to like program all the game logic. Um, so yeah, there's just a lot of different yeah, like you said, there's a lot of roles. I'd be interested. If you're obviously welcome to ask any questions you want. I'd just be interested to like hear a little bit about your background, the kinds of things you're interested in, the kinds of things that you've done.
Oh yeah. So my name's Ethan, and as like the Zoom says, like I'm interested in game design. I was like kind of shocked I was the only one when they informed me because like game design is really cool. I think a lot of people did nursing, but I'm interested in game design because I don't know. I want to have a fun job, not like a tiresome job. Like I know game design can be tiresome though. What would you describe like a day to day like working?
Yeah, so for me, um, the kind of stuff that I do specifically is much more focused on like programming and like creating tools. It's much less nowadays on um, like I guess like the artistic side of things. Um, so what that looks like a lot of times is I write code. Well, let me back up a little bit. So like we'll say that we get a request from an artist and they say like, okay, we want to be able to one second, I'm just gonna blur my background. We want to be able to like have I don't know, all of this data that we have in our database, we want to be able to access all of it for this tool we have, or we want to be able to like select one character in the level and move them around, and it actually like affects a whole bunch of characters and moves them around. So it's like you get a request from somebody, and then you'll kind of sit and work on it for a while. So a lot of times for me, I have like the local copy of our like game level pulled up, and I'm working in there, I'm iterating on a tool, and then once I get the tool to a state that I think it's ready to go, I I basically submit it for review, and then other people on my team look at the code that I wrote or the things that I put together, and they say like, okay, like this all looks good, or they say like, oh, maybe it doesn't cover like this scenario, or there's this edge case that it might not apply to, or you could have done this in a better way. Um, and so then depending on the feedback, then like, you go and you revise and you kind of go through that cycle a little bit. Like, so let's say like, okay, I think you should make these changes. And so you make those changes and you submit it for feedback again. And maybe they say like, okay, it's all great, you're good to go. Maybe they have more feedback. And so you do that until everyone's happy with how things look. And then you'll like submit it and you'll get it all in there and working. And then I go and I meet with the artists and I say like, okay, so here was the tool that you were requesting. Here's what I made. Here's what it can do. And I kind of give them a little training, and then they will take and go like, okay, so they'll use it. Maybe they'll have questions, and so they'll come back to me, and I'll have to come back down to them and show them how to use it more, or show them how to do something. And maybe they say like, okay, this is great for these 4 things, but can it also do these other 3 things? And so I'll go and I'll um, do that as well. And I guess I forgot to say too, like at the beginning, like I'll go and meet with them and figure out like what they're doing, what they're trying to do, so that I have an idea of the thing that I'm trying to build. But that's kind of like a day to day. And then there's also like other people will submit code to me and say like, hey, can you review this? And so I'll read through their stuff and run it and test it out and
So there's
make
like a
sure it
lot of
all works.
drafts, and you have to be precise with things.
Yeah. Have you done any like computer science or programming classes? Are you at all familiar with that?
No, but I'm like planning in college to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you like originally intend to do game design? Because you said you did animation.
Yeah, I mean kind of like you, I wanted like a fun job. I wanted something that I would enjoy. And actually originally like I thought I was going to be an artist. Like in high school I was really into drawing and I was really into um like kind of like graphic design almost. Like the original thing I was going to do in college was actually graphic design. I thought I was going to design logos and websites and things like that. And then I got into um I ended up switching over to animation, and then I kind of um, I realized like, oh, and then there's this like computer science side to it as well, and I kind of explored that more and more and more, and I was like, oh, I actually really like the computer science, the programming side, along with the um, artistic side, and so it like definitely evolved for me. Like I wanted to be like very artistic, and now I'm a little bit artistic, but mostly technical.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of kind of like if you think of that as kind of like I don't know like 2 ends of a spectrum. Like there is in a in any like game or movie studio, there's people kind of at any level. There's people who are fully artistic, people who are fully technical, people who are like halfway in between, people who are at different points.
Yeah.
And I've kind of found more at the technical end personally, but there's a lot of people that do other things.
So you took computer science in college, but not high school. Will you like describe it if like challenging for a beginner or like someone newly accustomed to it?
I computer science can be rather tricky. It's um, it kind of requires a different like way of thinking than or like not like a different way of thinking, but it's going to be different than just like writing an essay for English class or solving math problems or um, I don't know, like memorizing things for science or history. It's kind of a different um, approach, and um, it can be really challenging for newcomers. So personally, I did do some computer science in high school, and so I had that as like a background, and so I felt like that really helps me. But I have other friends. One of the guys that I work with right now, he didn't do any computer science at all until he got like halfway through college. and he and I now have the same job, and he sits and writes code all day. So you definitely can, pick it up in what I would call like a relatively short amount of time, like 2 to 3 years. You don't like you don't need to have been programming since you were 10 years old to be successful.
All right, that's good to hear because it's like really
Yeah.
intimidating at first, like hearing computer science, like because like schools don't really like teach it unless you like pick it, you know.
Yeah, for sure. It's like an elective thing. And so you can be like, oh, like I want to do pottery or I want to do computer
Yeah.
science. So
So, what are some challenges about your job, if any?
yeah, I mean let's see, there's quite a few. One, a big one is actually time management. So like at any given time, like I kind of described the whole process of like um like I start on this, like someone tells me, hey, I want this thing, and then I work through that to the end. At any one time, I might have like four of those going at once. Like I may be working on something, and then something comes in, they're like, hey, this is super urgent. We need this right now. Like, or like this other tool is like completely broken and no one can do anything until it's fixed. So we need you to fix that right now. Um, so time management, being able to be like, okay, like this thing does need to be done, but it's maybe lower priority. So I'm going to do that a little bit later. I need to focus on this right now. This maybe isn't very high priority, but I can do it really fast. So I'm just going to get that out of the way so that I have fewer things overall. That's um, a big thing. Another challenge is like we work a lot with Unreal Engine. And so just like knowing how to use Unreal Engine, how like knowing all of its capabilities, everything it could do, and then being able to like interact with it through code to kind of manipulate it to do what you want. Um, like that's a challenge. There's also like a lot of like communicating with other people, like kind of interpersonal skills. Like when I talk to the artists, when people give me feedback, when I give other people feedback, there's a lot of like making sure we're understanding each other well, and also like being nice to each other, making
Yeah.
sure we're not like offending people.
So there's like a lot of deadlines, you would say.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of deadlines, and I'll be honest, like the the video game and film industries in particular can have very hard deadlines. And so you can very frequently see people working a lot of overtime in order to meet those deadlines. And
Yeah.
it's kind of a trade-off because like a lot of places won't pay you for overtime, but they will expect you to work like 60 hours a week instead of 40 hours a week, or 80 hours a week instead of 40 hours a week. And they say like, well, you want to be here, you want to work on this game, this is like your dream job, so you better do it.
So
Um,
you're like kind of pressured into it.
yeah, a little bit. And um, that can be a really hard thing. Um, that can be really hard if you, I don't know, if you want to do other things in your life, if you want to have a social life, if you want to like have a family, if you want to like do other activities, like that can be really hard. And I would say that's really something to consider if you're, thinking about going into the film or game industry, is that long work, like working a lot is a big part of it. So,
May I ask how long you've been working for?
yeah, I have been working at this job for a little under a year. I was at my last job for about a year and a half.
To like contrast the other question, what are your favorite things about your job?
Yeah, so I really love just kind of like the problem solving aspect of um getting to like write code and do stuff. And like that's really like what it is it's kind of like, okay, I have this problem and I need to figure out how to solve it. And or like there's this thing that we need to do and it takes a really long time to do it, but I can get the computer to do it really fast. And that can be really satisfying and that is actually really fun to work. Um, I also do really love getting to work on something that then like other people can see and be like, oh, this is really fun. Like, working on a game and then people play the game like, wow, like this is so fun. Or making a film and people watch the film and they're like, oh, this is such a cool thing. Like that's really, really satisfying for me to have kind of like an actual like thing that you've produced um, in your work and you can like point back to it and be like, this is something I've made.
So you like the reactions from it
Yeah.
because you've been working on it very long, the project.
Hmm.
Hopefully,
Yeah. And I mean that can kind of be stressful too, because sometimes you work on something for a long time and people don't like it, and you're like, oh, okay,
oh
well,
yeah,
because people like stuff is subjective. People, it's not just like, oh, if I was just doing like I don't know, like normal computer science, and I was like working in statistics, like if I just like get all the statistics correct and I don't know, compile all the stuff, then it just is, and you are successful. But sometimes you have to accept that your success is defined by how people like the thing that you made, and that's tough. But when they do like it, it's super fun.
that's good to hear. What would you like give advice to someone going into game design?
So my advice, um, and this is definitely like I don't know, you would probably hear this differently from other people, but if you are really passionate about making video games, if that's what you really want to do, then I would say what you should study would be like computer science and math, because those are, in my opinion, like the hardest things to learn. Basically, like those are the hardest things to learn. Like you can learn a lot of the artistic stuff. You can learn a lot of the like game design stuff, kind of on your own or like through experience. But it can be really hard to like teach yourself linear algebra. But linear algebra is really, really useful for making video games. So I would say like even if what you want to do, if what you want to do is like you'd be like, I want to like design levels. Like I just want to like be the layout guy. And that's like your dream job. If you understand all the computer science and code, like what's going on under the hood, even if you're not writing code as your day job, just if you understand how stuff works, you'll be able to do your job better because you understand how the tools work and you can say like, oh, well, I want to, set things up in this way because it'll make the game run faster or it'll make the game look better because this is what the game engine is doing or this is what the code is doing. Um, so that would really be um, my one piece of advice. And then the other piece of advice is like just be willing to um, wear all the hats. I mean, like we were talking about earlier, how there's a lot of roles. Like um, depending on like where you go to school, if you can get involved in like I don't know, maybe they do have classes where you can work on designing a video game, or they have like a club, or they have game jams. One would be to like one piece of advice, definitely like get involved in those kinds of things. And two, um, would be to don't be like, okay, well, I want to be a level designer. And so if there's a job that needs to be done, but it's not the level designer, then I'm not going to do it. I would very much recommend not doing that. Be willing to do whatever job needs to be done, essentially, because there's a lot of overlap. You'll be like, oh, like, I'm trying to like think of a good example. Like, I don't know, maybe like creating like the effects in a video game. Like when the player like I don't know, you like punch a player and like blood splatters or something, and so you have to like create the blood splatter effect. Um, you may think like, oh, like that doesn't really like pertain to the thing that I want to do. I'm like I don't want to do it. You'll actually find that there's a lot of overlap. One, so you will end up learning a lot of stuff that is really useful. And two, people will just really like you, be like, oh, he's the guy that can, he can kind of like get anything done, and they'll want to work with you more. So like for future projects, they'll be, um, that looks really good if people are when you're trying to get a job, people are like, oh, you can kind of do anything we'll ask you to do.
So be open to it because you might like it.
Yeah,
Do you think that's also like a possibility?
totally.
And then you might be
Yeah.
like gain new skills for like the job you do want, like or
Hmm.
role.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you come in with that mindset, or were you like open to any role?
Um, I definitely started with the like, oh, well, I'm just gonna do the thing that I really want to do. And I think that that really held me back at the beginning. Um, and the program that I did, I had to apply to. So like, you have to apply to college and get into college.
Yeah.
And then some schools, once you're in the college, you then have to apply to a program inside the college. And so I applied to this animation program and I didn't get in. And I was like, no, I was so heartbroken. And I was like, okay, like I'm gonna go and like work on the like student projects, and it's like I will do anything, like anything you need to be done, like I will do it. And I kind of had this like moment where I was like, I need to, if I want to like get in here and do this, I need to open up a little bit. So
So that experience like help you grow to like understand like to experience new things outside your comfort zone.
yeah, absolutely.
But you say it's like a good thing to be outside your comfort zone then
I
for
think
these
so.
type
I
of
think
things.
it's yeah, that's um a really good thing. If you look at a lot of the people who are really successful, they're the ones who can like learn something and master it. And then once they have mastered it, they can hold on to that. But then they can say, like, okay, now I want to learn something new and I want to keep pushing the boundaries. And like as stuff changes and stuff continues, they're not going to be the ones who are like left behind when a new piece of technology comes out because they are like, okay, I can learn the new thing, or I've already learned the new thing.
Okay, I'll try to do that because as you mentioned, like you recommended to do math and I'm really bad at math, but like I have to be open to it. You know.
Yeah, that's really good. And I don't know, it's interesting. Once you start doing math for like, 'cause I was never like a huge fan of math, and I had to take like I'm gonna keep saying linear algebra as an example. Like I had to do linear algebra, and I was like, oh man, like linear algebra, like this stuff kind of sucks. It actually is not as hard as I thought it was. But then I started having to use linear algebra in the game that we were making, like in order to like make the player like move in certain directions and like interact with stuff. Like you had to basically get them to like move around in 3D space. And I was like, oh wait, like this isn't bad at all. It's just like, I had to just like understand how this math works. And now I can have the game engine do it for me. But you have to know kind of what everything is. And then it
Please.
was not that bad.
So math actually like came in handy because like teachers always be like, "Oh, you might need this for the future," and like I didn't know it would actually like help you.
Yeah, no, math, 100%. I actually use a lot of math in my job, which is maybe not something you wanted to hear, but math
No,
is
it's
quite
okay.
important.
I need to learn to like. I need to learn to like math. Will you say you like math now that you got like accustomed to it?
Yeah, I mean, like, I would say that I wouldn't say that I like, love like solving math problems or anything, but like, I really do enjoy being able to like understand and use it. And so like I like being able to use it in the context of my job, and it's it can be really fun and really exciting. But I'm not gonna like sit here and tell
Yeah.
you like, oh, I'm just like super passionate about calculus. Like I just love calculus because I don't. But
Is there any other subjects that came in handy for your profession, or mostly math and computer science?
I would definitely say math and computer science are the big ones. I like I'm trying to think now what else. Honestly, like there really is good in kind of um what am I trying to say? Like when you go to college, you have to take a lot of general classes. Like in order to graduate, you have to like take biology and you have to take physical science and you have to take art history and you have to take like all these classes. Like what the heck? Like I don't need this. And honestly, a lot of times it's really not very fun. You're like, I really like, my programming class, or I really like, this game that I'm working on. Why do I have to be sitting in this biology class? I could, instead of learning physics, I could go, work on this game. Um, but it is really good to be well-rounded. And like one example I'll give is I had to take a technical writing class, and I was like, writing, really? Like, it's not it's not that important for me. But we learned a lot about we learned about a lot about resumes and cover letters and how to write that. And so that was really important and really instrumental to getting a job because it's not just like guaranteed that like okay like I'm talented and I want to work in this field and so there will just be a job for me.
Yeah.
Um, so that was really helpful. And then also just kind of like what I was saying earlier, kind of the interpersonal communication aspect, like talking to my supervisor and talking to other people on my team or talking to people on other teams, talking to the artists. Like I learned a lot about like kind of like how to like structure work emails and how to I don't know, I'm like trying to think of the specifics. But anyway, this technical writing class that I thought was like totally stupid and totally useless, like ended up being like pretty useful. Not like the most useful thing ever, but like it has been useful.
May I ask how like you started? Like, how do you apply for the job? Like, do you have to build connections, or how did the sorry, how did like the process go?
Yeah, so I think this is like in most industries where you're trying to get a job, having connections is the best way to get a job. Um, it's just like the easiest to do that. But obviously, if you're just starting out, you're not going to have a lot of connections. Um, and so that can be really tricky. So what I did is I just went online and like I went on LinkedIn and I just like went on Google and I was just searching for like game studios and film studios and I just like found all of them that I could and I found all of them that had job openings and I just went through and looked at like any job that I thought I would be qualified for. I sent in an application. Um, I also went to some conferences. So there's a couple conferences I went to. One was called the Game Developers Conference or GDC, and it's where like basically every game company you've heard of. It's like I mean you have like Microsoft, Activision, Blizzard, um, EA, Riot, like literally every game company. Like they all go to this one conference, and they will like announce all their new games. They like different like companies will be like, oh, here's this like product that we sell that'll help you make your games, and they'll try and pitch it to people. People will go there to like make connections. So you'll like go and meet other people working in the industry. So that was really important for me as well. I went to that, and I went to another one called SIGGRAPH, which was that's more like for anything related to computer graphics, so like film or TV or video games or like I don't know anything with graphics, advertising.
So, like,
So
Oh, sorry.
Well, yeah. So anyway, just to recap, connections are like number one. Like that's like the best way to do it. Um, the the thing you'll probably end up doing the most is just like searching for jobs and just applying for a lot of jobs. And you have to just apply for a lot of jobs. Like that's just how it works. Is you got to like apply for a ton. You'll apply to like 50 jobs and you'll hear back from like 10 or 8 jobs, and then you'll like get an interview with some, and you'll go to like a lot of jobs have multiple rounds of interviews, and you'll make it through to the final round of interviews for maybe like one or two out of those 50 jobs. And then they may or may not give you a job offer. So you kind of just have to like apply for a lot of jobs. The more jobs you apply for, the more companies you'll hear back from. The more companies you go back from, the more you'll get interviews. More interviews, the more offers. But like each time, it just narrows more and more.
So you like
Anyway,
described it.
sorry,
Oh my god.
I keep getting off track. I keep getting off track.
It's
So
okay.
like,
No, no, no.
like
It's helpful.
connections is number one. Just like searching for jobs and applying to a lot of jobs is number two. And then like I would say like going to conferences, going to game jams, going to like places where you can like big events where you can meet other people that are in the game development space.
So like the social events will be like benefit, like it will benefit you basically.
Yeah,
Would you
yeah,
say it's like
and
competitive?
yeah, it's very competitive. It's a very competitive industry because there's a lot of people who are like, this is my dream job. Like, I've played like, I don't know, I've played Halo ever since I was a kid and I want to work on the next Halo game. So I really, really want to go work for who makes Halo now? Is it 343? And so like, when the company that makes Halo posts a job opening, tons of people are going to apply for it. So it's like it can be a very competitive industry, but that doesn't mean you need to like be competitive towards other people. Like you don't need like it really pays to be friendly to other people in the industry, even if you're all trying to get the same job. But it can be a very hard industry to find a job in.
Was it challenging for you personally? Like, did you do countless interviews and like they didn't reach back?
Yeah, no, I applied for a lot of jobs. So the previous company that I worked at, I got laid off because the company had to downsize. Um, and so they laid off. It was a very small company, but they laid off about half of their workers. Um, and then I was unemployed for a while, and I was just basically applying to jobs every day. And it took a while before I um, heard back and got the job where I'm at now. I'll also just say, like, as I was describing earlier, there's like like you can be like really artistic or really technical.
Yeah.
Generally, the more artistic, the more competitive the jobs are, and the more technical, the less competitive. It's still quite competitive, but like for being like artistic, like if you want to like draw concept art, that's going to be really, really, really competitive, and you're going to have a really, really hard time finding a job. But if you are like a game systems programmer or just like a tool developer, there's just more of those jobs that exist, and there's fewer people that want to do them.
Would you say there was like more artists and it's like oversaturated a little bit compared to like the less common like programmers and stuff?
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of that, I mean, there's a lot of factors that contribute to that. One is that if you like know programming and you're really good at it, then a lot of times you can just go and get a much better job at like a software company. And they'll like pay you more money and you don't have to work overtime and you get more benefits and all that kind of stuff. And so a lot of programmers are like, well, why would I work for a game company when I could go work for like, I don't know, any tech company? Um, but artists, it's like if they get laid off of, their one job at Nickelodeon or Nintendo or wherever, then there's not a lot of other jobs that they can go do. They kind of have to stay in that. So,
May I ask you like your favorite work experience or like something you worked on that you're really proud of?
I'll send it to you in the chat here. The film I did at the end of my senior year. I'll send you both of the capstone projects
Okay,
that I
that'd be
worked
great.
on. So that's the short film. The other one I'll send you here, the game that we did. It's on Steam, so if you have a it's I think it's only built for PC. I don't think it's on console. But if you have a PC that can run games, you can play the game that we made.
Okay.
And if not, you can like watch the trailer.
Oh, my bad school Chromebook right now. Hopefully it loads.
Yeah, I don't think it would run on the Chromebook, unfortunately.
Yeah. Maybe I'll try. Just kidding. This can't even run Canvas, so
Oh, yikes.
for the projects, how much would you say like how much people are working on it? Is it like a lot
So
or like
yeah,
few?
so these two in particular, um, yeah, I'll talk about these and then I'll talk about like what I've done at work. So these two projects, the game project, there was probably a group of 30 to 40 people at any one time. I'd probably say 60 to 70 people total worked on it. Um, the short film was probably a little more. It's probably like 80 to 90. What did we be? Yeah, I think that's probably, yeah, 80 to 90 people probably worked on that short film, or helped in some way. Um, at the job I'm currently at, there's over 800 people working on the movie that we're working on. Um, and they've been working on it for 5 years. And so in total, there's probably been well over 1,000 people that have worked on it. So yeah, these are like very
Wow,
large
very long.
collaborative projects. And a lot of like really big movies and video games are, but there's also a lot of like, um, especially games. Games, you can have very small teams or even one person teams. Like, do you know the game Undertale?
Oh yeah.
So that was made by one person.
So like it varies between.
Yeah. But like obviously, like I don't know, like you look at Undertale, and then if you look at like Breath of the Wild or
Oh
something,
yeah.
like those are two very different looking games. Like Breath of the Wild probably had over 1,000 people.
Are indie games run by like smaller teams?
Mhm. Yeah. So an indie game generally means that usually what that actually means is it's a small studio,
Mm.
um, a small studio or one person. I think kind of technically it means like that it doesn't have a publisher, which is like someone that will kind of like pay to promote your game, and in return they get some of the proceeds from the game.
May I ask the two projects you worked on, like how long did it take? Because you mentioned like you're working on a movie that took 5 years.
Yeah, so the each of those projects that we worked on took a year. And I will say most movies don't take 5 years. The company that I'm at takes a long time. Most movies take about 1 year to make. And most video games actually take most like AAA games, like the really big games, will take on the about 5 year scale.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any more questions at the moment. But let me know if there's like any additional comments you'd like to
Yeah,
mention.
let me look at what they some of the recommended stuff. I think that they went over a lot of this. Um, let's see. What should I be doing? So one thing they have in here is what should I be doing in college to prepare for a career? Um, the one thing I would say is it's never too early to start thinking about um, well, I mean, like thinking about where you want to work is easy. You can be like, oh, I want to work at Nintendo. I want to work at
Yeah.
Sony. I want to work at Sega. I want to work at whatever. But like start taking steps to get there. Whether that's trying to connect with people who already work there. So like one thing you can do is um, you can look at people who went to your school and then see if there's any of those people that now are at that company. Um, that's a really good way. And like getting good relationships with professors is also really good. A lot of times when you're first coming out of school, they can like really vouch for you and they can really like if a company says like, hey, should we hire this guy? Then your professors can be like, yes, like we think this is a good person for your company. Um, and I would like kind of like I was saying before, like making friends with like your classmates, making friends with, other people who might go to game jams or conferences or things like that. Like just getting to know a lot of people is just really um, can be just a big help. Like when I was looking for a job, I um, some some friends that I had that work in just like a normal, like I guess like the normal tech field, uh, recommended me for a job that I ended up like interviewing with pretty extensively, and I was maybe going to take that job, but then I got my current job instead.
So it's good to like build connections with like different industries.
Yeah, I would say like different industries and just like honestly, like anyone you can, like just it never. I don't think it ever really hurts
Yeah.
to have those kinds of connections. I was gonna see. I had something else. I was gonna go along with that. Just like it's never too early to start looking. Oh, it's not 100% related. Have you heard of a game jam before? I've brought that up a couple times, but have you ever heard of a game jam?
That sounds really familiar, but like if you ask me the definition, I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. So normally what a game jam is it's like a it's kind of a competition. It's technically a competition to go and make a game in a very short amount of time. So it'll be like, okay, this is a weekend game jam. So from like Friday to Sunday, you have to start from zero and you have to like fully make a game. Or it'll be like 24 hours. Like you have from, 3 p.m. today to 3 p.m. tomorrow to make a game. And it is technically a competition. Like I think pretty much always like one game like will win. Um, but a lot of times it's more to one, practice making games, and two, to like get to know other people and maybe like collaborate with other people. Like, maybe there's like someone that you like kind of know. Then you just like, oh hey, like let's do a game jam together. Let's, you know, it's not like a huge commitment. It's not going to be like a year-long project. We're going to say like, okay, we're going to take 2 days and we're going to make a game. We're going to see what we can do.
Wait, how long do they last?
So it depends. They're usually like not more than like a few days. Maybe there's ones that last longer. I haven't ever heard of any that last longer than 3 days. But it's usually between 1 to 3 days.
Have you ever done one?
I kind of participated in one, not really. I should have. I wish I had, and have been thinking about um, doing more sometimes. I think it'd be fun. But from what I hear, they're just very um, really great experiences, and I definitely recommend them, even though I haven't personally done one.
So what happened to like the winners, or is it more like fun and practice?
I think it's a lot of times it's more fun in practice. Like the winners might get like a small cash prize, or maybe they get like I don't know, like a game website or game magazine will host it, and so they'll be like, okay, if you win, we'll like feature you in our next issue, or we'll feature you on the website so people can like discover you. Um, but um, it's not like I don't know. There's not like huge prizes.
Yeah. Does your company work on like different genres, or you guys focus on one thing?
We mainly focus on stop motion films. Um, I think they're trying to start some other stuff, but really like what we do is these stop motion, and they're in different like they're kind of in different genres. They're mostly like family-ish movies. This movie we're working on right now is maybe a little more on the PG-13 to R rated side, but I would say it's normally um, pretty similar.
Yeah. May I ask, like, since you said it was the movie takes 5 years, is it like almost done, or is it like halfway?
Um, we are aiming to have it out by next year, like the end of next year is the goal. So hopefully that happens. I guess we'll see. There's still like a lot of work that needs to be done, but um, we've made a lot of progress so far. So hopefully it is done by then.
So sometimes like the deadline, like you exceed it, or like the expectation, like the estimate.
hmm Yeah, yeah. No, it is. It's actually quite common for games and movies to go. Usually that's called like, well, when it goes over time, it goes over budget. So for companies, the most expensive thing is actually people's time. It's paying the people to do it. It's not like buying supplies. It's not buying software. It's not buying computers. It's paying people to work on the thing.
Yeah.
So, but like movies and video games do go over budget very often. That's pretty common, but no one's very happy when that happens.
So what's like an instant if they lose really a lot of money?
If a studio like really goes way over budget, and yeah, let's say they go like way over budget, and then like nobody watches the movie or nobody like buys the game to play it, then a studio might close. Like a studio might go out of business. The studio might have to lay off a lot of people. Might have to cancel projects. Um, and that's another really unfortunate thing that is just kind of the reality um, of working at. Like my the company I was at before, like that's what happened is they we did a lot of client work. We really like depended on other people paying us to make stuff for them, and the clients just like didn't have as much stuff, and we couldn't find more people who needed stuff, and so they had to start laying people off, and I was one of those people, unfortunately, and that's just kind of how it goes, and it's really rough, but yeah.
Would you consider it like a stable job, like long lasting, or can you unexpectedly be laid off?
You can definitely unexpectedly be laid off.
Yeah.
I would say it is much less stable than a lot of other industries,
Yeah.
unfortunately. I will also, I just remembered this. There's a YouTube channel that I really like that I would highly recommend checking out if you were at all interested in game development. Um, it's called Pirate Software. Maybe you've already heard of him. But he's a guy, he worked at Blizzard for a long time and worked at other places. And he left, and now he's making an indie game. But the guy just talks a lot about um, getting into the game industry. He focuses specifically on the game industry. Talks a lot about getting into the game industry. He talks a lot about making games. He talks a lot about, I don't know, just a lot of the stuff we've been talking about, basically. Um, and I would yeah, I would just really recommend subscribing to him and watching his stuff. I watch a lot of his stuff, and it's just really good for learning. He really tries to promote learning.
Is there any more like YouTubers you would recommend, or
But
mainly pirate?
I would have like easily he's the best one for like game development specifically. Um, let me think. I'm thinking of a lot of like programming related ones.
Yeah.
Um, I can send you some programming ones if you think that would be interesting. Um, I also don't want it to be like too overwhelming.
Yeah. No worries. Do you like
Um,
watch him in college or something, or like you still watch him? Right?
yeah, I still watch him. I still really enjoy the stuff.
All right, it seems like we are coming towards the end of today's session.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you so much for talking to Ethan today. And Ethan, you have asked a lot of good questions. Are there any more things on your mind that you would like to ask Greg Gabriel before we sign off?
I think I think I have no more further questions, but I'd just like to thank Gabriel for being like really attentive to my questions, responding really nicely, being helpful in general.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
very welcome.
thank you on behalf of the students. Thank you, Gabriel, for taking today's session. I find all those information that you have shared, it would be very beneficial for Ethan in terms of how he would plan his pathways and also in terms of courses that he needs to take. Yeah, I know some of those things might sound a little bit intimidating, but hey, like Gabriel said, if you put your mind to it, then
Yeah.
yeah, you would get a positive outcome out of it.
Yeah, I'll also just I don't know, maybe you already have it, but I'll just put my email in here as well, and you're always welcome to email me and reach out if you have any questions or advice or anything at all. Feel free to drop me an email.
Okay. That'd be really helpful. Just like in case in the future, like maybe that
Yeah,
chance.
absolutely.
I'm still interested in it. You know.
Yeah,
All right, so I think with that, thank you very much again, Great Gabriel, for the
yeah,
time to talk to Ethan, and have a good evening. Bye for
you
now.
too. Yeah, good to
Bye,
meet you both.
everyone.
Have a good one.
Thank you and goodbye.